Well, hey folks, it's your old pal King Waspinator. Welcome back to Total Party Skills. As a little Thanksgiving treat for everyone out there who's interested in such things, I was going to try to describe what I'm doing exactly with my Spelljammer setting and the campaign I'm running right now. We're about to get up to session 12 here this Thanksgiving weekend. And unfortunately, there's like a lot of different things going on. First and foremost, in order just a lot of this is just to kind of establish my own fidelity. How much the player characters and the players are ever going to hear about any of this stuff is a question mark. But it's the sort of thing that you as a DM kind of need. Just to kind of have your own sense of eternal reality, so you can like answer questions when they're asked of you about what's happened, when, and all that kind of stuff. I'm trying to integrate an incredible amount of D&D lore together, because since it's Spelljammer and multi-spatial, like all the various D&D settings, are all kind of canon in and of themselves, and so they all exist, and you kind of have to decide on like what happened when and how they overlap each other. And also kind of combining it as a continuation and capping point for a thing I've been doing since 5th edition came out, where I'm kind of viewing the era of D&D that it represents as the final era of 5 great eras of history, kind of a thing, at least as far as like individual planets go. But Spelljammer time goes back further, so basically I have like 100,000 year timeline of like major key points in D&D history. The initial spacefarers that colonized all the worlds in the dawn times would be your races like your elves, dragons, and giants, and that's why so many worlds have legends featuring, big, huge primordial wars between these races at the dawn of time and all that kind of stuff. The initial human civilization back then actually had like Star Trek type starships, and one of their first colonies was on Mystara, which is where you get, the legends of Blackmore and what happened with Blackmore and all that. But eventually that civilization fell because something happened that, like, the Star Trek Discovery style burned out their ability to use their warp drives or something on a galaxy-wide scale. So you have all these human colonies all over the place and other scattered groups, kind of like learning to cohabitate. Universe, plugs along. Worlds rise and fall, civilizations rise and fall. Spelljamming is rediscovered again through magic and all that kind of stuff. Have it both that Brawl and the Spelljammer, the big giant manta ray looking ship that was in the original Spelljammer box set stuff, but has not been mentioned or included in the new 5th edition version of Spelljammer. So I'm bringing it back in there in a couple different ways, both historically as being, a thing that's been passing through this corridor space that lies between the Elven Armada Empire and this big vast region that was destroyed by the Gammaroid Crisis. Brawl, because it's an asteroid and not a Spelljammer, like when it tries to chug through the astral space, like centuries upon centuries will pass between each drop-off points. So in back charting Brawl's path through this corridor space from star system to star system, it kind of at Brawl at different points lines up with certain points in D&D history. Yet the people on there have only experienced like a couple generations of time having passed because of, astral time kind of being non-existent. So while they're in the astral space for centuries, they're just existing and they don't really feel the passage of time at all. And then suddenly they're back, and it's hard to even tell that, centuries have gone by necessarily. But, you have the rise and fall of the Lithids, you have the destruction of the stars in the Astromundi cluster, time passes. The Blood War across planes and Planescape, the Great Modron March. Finally, we're up here to the end of time. Brawl has reached a star system where the Council of Worms planet is located, combining a bunch of different random adventure modules and stuff to kind of create a setting for the various worlds that are in the star system, while also, though, like massively repopulating them to kind of create a more consistent picture. And this idea is like the events in the adventure storyline in the second version of the Council of Worms book for second edition AD&D. First, the dragons had purged most of the humans off the planet because of fear of dragon slaying, and then when the drow betray them, along with dwarves, they'd engage on a second, larger scale purge where they not only drive the other, dwarves, gnomes, and elves off their world, but they also then go to the other planets in their star system and do the same. Surviving humans have to make deals with various esoteric beings to survive it all, and so that's where in some places you might find large populations of different kinds of genasi or tieflings or even Aasimar. But in the thousands of years since all that happened, the star system's largely been repopulated with beast races. The dragons in particular preferring and uplifting reptilian types over the mammalian and avian. So, in the outer star system, further away from First World, you get, Nintir, which is populated by Kenku and Harangon and Minotaurs that come from underground. It's based on the Nintir Vale setting as presented in the 4th edition Dungeon Master's Guide. The planet that's like a destroyed ring around the gas giant that Nintir orbits. Used to be kind of like a general reflection of what the rest of the Narath Empire was as presented for 4th edition. And the ruins of Voru-Koth are still to be found on one of the asteroids. And the gas giant itself, Nen, I'm kind of having to freewheel. The characters are actually going there, so I had to actually put a little bit more thought into it. And so basically it's like Jack and the Beanstalk on steroids. It's a gas giant, so it's mostly populated by cloud giants and air genasi, and has its own kind of ordning going on that's overseen by a quintessent. And so I think that's what the characters are on their way to go meet right now, is the quintessent. There's another planet. It's a desert planet. Naming it Arir, after the region described in the Day of Al-Akbar adventure module for old AD&D. I'm also combining Swamp Light from old AD&D adventure module to describe one jungle region where the lizard folk dwell. And I'm kind of adapting Yalarum from the Mystara setting, just to kind of, cap that off. And then the southern parts of the planet's basically just like a big dune sea kind of thing. It's more, the Arabian Peninsula as a planetoid, as opposed to redoing Dark Sun. It's not quite that harsh. But it's going to Yanti are one of the major races. There'll be turtles, lizard folk, and then there's also Leonin as kind of the alternate civilization, and centaurs are the wild barbarians that live in the sandy wastes in the south and raid people on the borders and stuff, and they're the last remnant of the Fae on that planet. And then First World is just the Blood of Io Islands, and basically just saying at some point that they sunk those 2 mystery continents at the North and South Poles, and so now it's just the Blood of Io. And I don't know. I don't really have any particular plans for the player characters to go there, so I don't know how much I necessarily need to detail it, because one of the player characters is a dragonborn from there. There's going to be some stuff with Clan Warclaw, which is a Sapphire Dragon lead clan of the Council of Worms. So I'm going to figure out something to do with that and all that kind of stuff. And coming up with things for what the surrounding star civilizations are like, and what the neighboring star systems are. I've placed them pretty close to Brawl. I've placed Brawl pretty close to Eberron and Athos, and Zen Space, where I'm going to basically take the Ninja Wars module and just make a Japanese island archipelago, kind of tropical world, populated by ogres and hobgoblins and such. Going to have a neighboring planet that's an ice planet. That's where the Dawar come from. And because of some events that have already occurred in the game, kind of also putting in motion things that'll be going on in the background that will basically be destroying the D&D universe. The elves are all going to go to war with each other. This is going to spark the Elven Armada to use the planet-killing crystal seeds as described in the Light of Xerxes adventure. They're basically going to destroy the planet that Vox Machina takes place on, and Toril, and Kryn, just gonna have them get blown up. There'll be a big battle in orbit over Eberron, but because Eberron's actually got, you know, like technology, that gives them, you know, a bit of an edge to be able to beat off the elves. Haha. And just kind of see how the players react to that. But that war is also, you know, a aspect of the planescape part of the setting, which the characters haven't really touched upon too much yet. Some of them are about to experience the border ethereal, but only briefly. But, you know, as like the Asgardian elves of Ysgard, you know, go up against the, you know, the more Aborian elves of Arventor, you know, there's gonna like create a big, massive interplanar conflict. You know, eventually the Drow, who are, you know, Loth's children in the Abyss and all that with the Demonwood pits, they're gonna get involved. I'm gonna have Yggdrasil get destroyed and the Feywild kind of be frozen in like crystalline form and stuff, because they basically shoot one of these crystal seeds right into the Feywild to neutralize, you know, their interdimensional enemies with the astral elves. And yeah, so basically, like, I've kind of set in motion the doom of the universe, and all thanks to the player character's actions. It's always great when you can make sure that you can tie the events going on around you to things the player characters have done, and I think I've at least pulled that off on this one, so we'll see. Anyway, I guess like that's like a rough sketch of what I've been doing and where it might be going. As always, though, it kind of mutates from week to week based on things, because that's, you know, I don't know, it's gives you something to think about, I guess. Anyway, yada yada. Y'all have a good turkey day and stay waspinated.